Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. Out in the scorching Arizona desert, a battle brews, not with guns or fists, but with fences, fury, and 3 military-trained dogs. When a nosy HOA queen dares to invade one veteran sanctuary, she ignites a war she never saw coming. This isn't just a backyard, it's a battlefield. I have spent most of my life on high alert, trained to read every twitch and shadow like a potential threat. Old habits die hard. Even here, out in the wide expanse of Arizona desert, I keep my land tight and secure. 4 acres of sun-baked soil and stubborn patches of green lawn, all wrapped with a sturdy fence and lined with cameras that watch day and night. This place is my sanctuary. I bought it after retiring from the military when I decided I'd had enough of other people's rules. Out here, the only rules are mine. It is where I live with my 3 Belgian Malinois, Kaiser, Storm, and Lucy. They're more disciplined than most soldiers I've trained and far less likely to complain. Every morning starts the same way. I'm up before the sun brewing strong coffee that could strip paint while the desert air is still cool. The dogs sit patiently by the back door, eyes bright, waiting for the word. I take them out to the training yard, a section of my backyard I've turned into a drill zone with obstacles, ramps, and bite sleeves. Kaiser, my oldest, moves with that effortless precision of a seasoned pro. Storm is pure energy, all muscle and nerve, while Lucy, the youngest, is as sharp as a whip, but loves testing my patience just to see if I'll snap. This yard isn't just for them, it's my therapy too. Nothing clears the mind like running drills until you're too exhausted to care about the world beyond your fence. I bought this property years ago precisely because it was outside the reach of any homeowners association. I'd had my fill of being told how to live, what color mailbox to have, or when I could cut my grass. The HOA community next door, Sand Hollow Ranches, is close enough to share the same main entrance road, but that's where any connection ends. Their little slice of suburban dictatorship starts and stops at their gates. My land isn't theirs. I remind myself of that fact often, especially now, with the new woman who is taking control over there. Her name is Karen Larson, and she's the kind of woman who walks like she owns the ground she steps on. I ran into her a few weeks ago by the shared entrance gate when I was loading the dogs into my truck. She was in her 50s, perfectly coiffed blonde hair that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill, and a look in her eye that said she had a clipboard hidden somewhere on her person. She introduced herself as the new president of Sand Hollow Ranches and immediately launched into some pitch about community image enhancement. I barely listened until she mentioned my property. "I noticed your backyard would be perfect for gatherings," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "The HOA is planning some community events, and it would be nice to include your space since it's so close to our own facilities. You wouldn't mind, right?" I stared at her for a good few seconds just to make sure I'd heard correctly. "Ma'am," I said, "this land isn't part of your HOA. Not a single inch, and no one sets foot on my property without my say-so." She blinked as if people usually bowed to her demands. "Well, we could make arrangements," she said, like she was offering me some kind of favor. "It's really for the benefit of everyone. A sense of unity, you know?" "Unity," I repeated flatly. "Let me be clear, my property is private. You and your HOA have no business here. Don't even think about planning anything on my side of the fence." The smile slid off her face like butter on hot toast. She didn't argue, but I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. People like her don't like being told no, and I could smell the trouble coming. Over the next week, I started finding HOA newsletters and flyers in my mailbox, despite the fact that I'm not on their list and never have been. They were all about upcoming community improvement projects and shared spaces, each one with some nauseating stock photo of people smiling over lemonade. I tossed them straight in the trash. My land is not a shared space. The thought of strangers trampling my lawn or messing with my dogs made my jaw clench. I told myself it was nothing, just some overzealous HOA nonsense, and that Karen would move on once she realized I wasn't playing ball. But I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't the type to take no for an answer. When I left for Phoenix that Friday morning, I wasn't thinking about trouble. I had a 2-day seminar lined up with an old buddy who trains police K-9 units, and it was the perfect excuse to get out of town. I loaded my truck with gear, checked the dog's automatic feeders and water stations twice, and made sure every camera on the property was recording in high resolution. My fence gates were locked, the perimeter lights were set on a timer, and Kaiser gave me that serious look he gets when he knows I'm leaving. "Hold the fort," I told them, scratching his ears before I pulled out of the driveway. The drive was uneventful. Phoenix is close enough for a short trip, but far enough that the desert feels endless. The seminar was worth it. 2 days of pure focus on drills, new tracking techniques, and trading war stories with guys who've seen the same brand of hell. By Sunday evening, I was feeling recharged, the kind of calm I only get from spending time with people who speak my language. That feeling lasted all of 10 minutes after I turned onto my road. From a mile out, I saw the lights. Not the soft glow of my porch or security floods. No, this was a damn light show. Strings of white bulbs hanging over my yard like it was Christmas. Music thumping so loud the bass rattled my truck's dashboard. For a second, I thought I had taken the wrong turn. But as I slowed down, I recognized the outline of my house, my fence, my trees. My jaw locked tight. I parked outside the gate, killed the engine, and just stared. There were cars lined along the dirt shoulder, people laughing and carrying drinks as they moved between my backyard and the HOA's community lot next door. My gate wasn't just open, it had been propped wide with a brick, as if it were some public entrance. I got out, and the desert night air smelled of spilled beer, barbecue smoke, and expensive perfume. It felt like walking into a nightmare. I moved along the fence to the back corner where the smaller gate stood. The padlock I'd left there was gone. The latch had been pried open. There were fresh marks on the wood, as if someone had used a crowbar. My blood pressure spiked. Whoever these people were, they had forced their way onto my land. I pushed through the open gate, and the scene hit me like a slap. My training field, where I run the dogs every morning, was covered in folding chairs and tables, balloons tied to the posts. A rented sound system blared some generic pop garbage. I saw a couple of kids climbing my obstacle ramp like it was a playground. My rose bushes along the fence line had been stomped on, petals scattered like confetti. Then I saw her, Karen, standing under a rented canopy, wearing a bright coral dress and a smug grin, holding a microphone as if she were hosting some kind of suburban award show. "Thank you, everyone, for coming to celebrate a new era for Sand Hollow Ranches," she said, her voice booming through the speakers. "Together, we can make our neighborhood shine like never before." People cheered, raising their plastic cups. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. I kept to the shadows, taking it all in. My cameras would have captured this madness, but I wanted my own evidence. I pulled out my phone and started recording, zooming in on the broken gate. The cars parked like vultures along my property line. The strangers sprawled on my porch furniture. A guy I'd never seen before was using my grill without permission, flipping burgers like he owned the place. I felt something deep and ugly stirring in my chest. I considered walking straight in and ending it right there, but I wanted to be smart. My instinct was screaming, but the soldier in me knew this wasn't the time. I went back to my truck, checked the locks on the side gates, and mentally ran through every angle of my property. They'd turned my home into their playground. That would be the last time they ever tried. By the time I killed the engine for the second time, my patience had evaporated. I walked straight toward the open gate, each step heavy, my boots crunching over the gravel like warning shots. The music from the backyard was deafening now, bass shaking through the ground as if my property had been turned into a makeshift club. I pushed the gate open, stepped through, and froze for a heartbeat to take it all in. It was worse than I thought. There were at least 30 people spread out across my yard, drinking, laughing, stomping on my grass. Some woman was dancing in the middle of my training field, holding a red plastic cup like she was at a college party. 2 men I didn't recognize were lounging on my porch swing, shoes kicked off, while a kid scribbled with chalk all over the patio stones I'd laid by hand. I felt the kind of calm that only comes right before you decide to flip the table. Karen spotted me almost immediately. She was standing by the rented canopy, holding her microphone like a trophy, with that smug little smile plastered across her face. "Oh, look who's here!" she shouted, her voice amplified through the speakers. "Richard, dear, come join us. We're just celebrating the neighborhood." I didn't answer her. I walked straight past a group of confused teenagers who were huddled around my fire pit, then reached the power cord of the sound system and yanked it out of the socket. The music died mid-beat, leaving an awkward silence and a few muttered complaints. Karen's smile faltered, but she quickly recovered. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded, walking toward me. This is a community event. We all agreed it would be. Stop talking, I said flatly, my voice low enough to carry. This is my property. You have no right to be here. All of you need to get out. Now. Her eyes widened for a moment, then narrowed. Richard, I told you before, your backyard is part of our shared entrance. It's practically a common area, and we've decided. Decided? I barked a short, humorless laugh. Lady, I don't care if you held a town hall meeting and voted unanimously to crown me king of Sand Hollow Ranches. This is my land. You broke in. That's called trespassing. Someone snickered behind her. A guy in sunglasses muttered, Relax, dude. It's just a party. That was it. I didn't even waste words on him. I walked to the back corner of the yard where the dog's training enclosure stood. Kaiser was already standing stiff, ears forward, eyes locked on me like he was waiting for the green light. Storm paced behind him, tail twitching, while Lucy barked once, sharp and eager. I opened the gate slowly and gave one single command. Guard. They exploded out of the enclosure like 3 missiles. The reaction was instant chaos. Kaiser lunged past me, barking with that deep, rolling growl that makes grown men rethink their life choices. Storm darted left, circling a group of partygoers who froze like deer in headlights, while Lucy charged straight toward the canopy, skidding to a halt just feet away from Karen with a snarl that made her shriek. No one got bitten, but you'd have thought I'd unleashed wolves from hell. People screamed, dropped cups, tripped over chairs trying to escape. A guy tried to run, but Storm cut him off, barking furiously, forcing him back toward the gate. Kaiser herded a group of panicked guests toward the driveway, snapping his teeth in the air but never making contact. It was controlled chaos, the kind of precision only a trained dog unit can pull off. Karen was screeching something about calling the police, her face pale and sweaty as Lucy held her ground, barking in short bursts that echoed off the fence. Call whoever you want, I shouted over the noise, but you'll be doing it from outside my fence. Move! It took less than 3 minutes for the crowd to scatter. Chairs tipped over, drinks spilled into the dirt, and the canopy was left sagging like a deflated balloon. Karen was the last to leave, hurling a string of half-coherent threats over her shoulder as she stumbled toward the open gate. I locked it behind her with a satisfying click. The dogs returned to me, tails wagging like it had all been a game. I crouched, giving each of them a rough pat on the shoulders. Good work, I muttered, though my blood was still boiling. I pulled out my phone and reviewed the footage from the cameras, front, side, back angles. Every second of their little invasion was recorded, from the moment they pried open the gate to the final scramble when the dogs chased them out. I saved everything to multiple drives and sat down on my porch steps, Kaiser leaning against my knee, Storm pacing with adrenaline still buzzing through his veins. I didn't know what Karen's next move would be, but I was certain this wasn't over. By Monday morning, I should have been nursing a coffee on my porch, watching the sunrise burn the desert horizon, but instead, I was sifting through emails and saving camera footage. The silence after Saturday's chaos was almost unnerving. The dog sensed it too. Kaiser stayed close, pacing the fence line as if waiting for round 2. I knew Karen well enough now to realize she wasn't the type to retreat and lick her wounds. People like her don't apologize. They strike back. The first sign came that afternoon when a certified letter arrived. The envelope screamed legal trouble before I even opened it. Inside was a formal notice from Sand Hollow Ranch's HOA, signed by Karen herself. It accused me of reckless endangerment and intentional infliction of emotional distress toward community members. They claimed I had unleashed dangerous attack dogs on innocent families during what they called a community celebration. I laughed when I saw the demand for $100,000 in damages, citing ruined personal items, property, damage, and trauma to children. Trauma. The closest my dogs came to biting anyone was the sound of Kaiser's bark. I took a deep breath, knowing this was just the start. Karen wasn't just bluffing. She'd gone all in. She even attached a statement threatening to pursue criminal charges if I didn't comply with their demands. It was like she thought she could scare me into handing over cash and my property rights in one go. Wrong veteran for that game. I called my lawyer, Sam Howard, an old friend from my Army days who'd traded his combat boots for courtroom shoes. Sam listened to my rundown, chuckling grimly. "Sounds like you've got yourself a textbook HOA tyrant," he said. "We'll handle it. First, we file a counterclaim for trespassing and property damage. You've got video, right?" "Plenty of it," I said. "Every angle, every second of them on my land. And the gate they broke. I've got close-ups of the damage. Sam's voice sharpened. Good. Send me everything. We'll also add defamation if she keeps pushing this dangerous dogs nonsense. Arizona law is on your side. Rick, your land, your rules. And those dogs are licensed and trained, right? Registered, insured, and smarter than half the people at that party, I replied. Within an hour, I'd sent him the footage, photos of the broken latch, and the cleanup bill I'd racked up after the invasion. Beer stains, trampled flower beds, and shredded lawn patches don't fix themselves. The next day, as if on cue, Karen showed up again. She stood just beyond the fence line like she was waiting for a duel, clutching a clipboard and wearing sunglasses that made her look like an overconfident celebrity. I walked out with Kaiser at my side, his ears up and tail low, radiating that "don't mess with me" vibe. "Richard," she began, voice tight with forced politeness, "we need to discuss Saturday. Your behavior was unacceptable. People could have been hurt. You owe us." I cut her off with a sharp laugh. "You broke into my backyard, Karen. You damaged my property. You threw a party without asking, and now you think you're the victim. You're lucky all I did was turn my dogs loose instead of calling the cops right then." Her nostrils flared. "You will regret this. Our HOA has resources, lawyers. We can bury you in legal fees." "Try it," I said, stepping closer to the fence. "Every move you make. I've got it all on record. Your little party is sitting on 3 separate security drives. I'll be happy to show that footage to the police, the court, or anyone else who needs to see who is trespassing." She faltered just slightly, but her ego held firm. "We'll see," she spat, spinning on her heel and storming back to her car. By Wednesday, things escalated again. A patrol car rolled up my driveway, lights off, but clearly not here for a casual chat. The officer, a middle-aged guy with that tired look of someone who's heard too many HOA complaints, stepped out and asked to talk. "Got a report of aggressive dogs," he said. "Some residents claim they were threatened." I didn't argue. I showed him the footage, all 3 camera angles of the dogs herding people out of the yard without ever making contact. I also handed over the HOA's demand letter. The officer's eyebrows went up, and he let out a low whistle. "Looks like you're the one who's got the case here," he said finally. "We're not charging you with anything. If anything, you should consider pressing charges for trespassing." "Oh, I am," I said with a grin. "And I'm just getting started." Sam didn't waste time. By Friday, he'd already filed the counterclaim for trespassing, property damage, and harassment. He had a knack for dismantling people like Karen, methodical, sharp, and relentless. "If they think they can bully you, we're going to make this cost them," he said over the phone, his voice cool and steady. "But first, we're going to dig. I want every dirty detail about this HOA circus." I handed him everything I had: security footage, still photos of the damage, the copy of Karen's ridiculous demand letter, even the HOA flyers I tossed into a drawer. Sam had a private investigator on speed dial, and within days, the real story started bubbling up like oil under a desert sun. Turns out, Karen wasn't just overstepping. She was flat out lying to her own board. The HOA meeting notes, yes, we got those, showed that she'd told everyone my backyard was technically part of a community easement, and that I had given verbal permission for the event. Verbal permission? The only words I'd ever said to that woman were variations of, "Stay the hell off my property." But it got worse. One of the contractors they'd hired for the party, a local event planner named Diego, came forward when Sam's investigator tracked him down. Diego was furious. Karen hadn't paid him the full amount and had told him my yard was open for community use. He had the text messages to prove it. "If I'd known this was private property, I'd have never set foot there," Diego said when I spoke to him over the phone. "She said you were cool with it. Guess she lied to everyone." The investigator also pulled up something else that made my blood boil. Karen and a couple of her inner circle board members had been exchanging emails for weeks about my land. In one thread, she suggested making the backyard part of the community landscape plan because it would improve property values for everyone. Another email went even further. If we just set up picnic tables and start using the space, he won't. Fight it. He's too quiet to care. I laughed out loud when I read that one. Quiet? Sure. But quiet doesn't mean I'll let people steamroll me. Meanwhile, I tightened up my own defenses. I upgraded the perimeter cameras to high-definition models with night vision, added motion sensors, and installed a bright yellow sign at every entrance. Private property, no trespassing. Violators will be prosecuted. The dogs picked up on the tension. Kaiser stayed close to the house while Storm patrolled the yard at night like he knew something was brewing. Midweek, a couple of HOA board members, ones I'd never seen before, drove up and knocked on my front gate. They looked uncomfortable, shuffling their feet while Storm barked from the porch. One of them, a balding guy with a nervous smile, tried to smooth things over. "Look, Mr. Stanton, we just want to avoid all this legal stuff. Maybe we can work something out." "Not interested," I said, cutting him off. "Your president broke into my yard and trashed it. I don't negotiate with trespassers." She might have made a mistake. The other one muttered, but he didn't sound like he believed it. I told them to take it up with their lawyers and walked away. Sam was delighted with all the evidence we'd collected. "This isn't just trespassing," he said. "This is premeditated fraud. She forged the narrative, lied to her own board, and probably misused HOA funds to pay for that little shindig. We're going to hit them with everything." It was almost satisfying, watching the facade crack. A couple of HOA members quietly reached out to me through Sam, saying they were furious with Karen for dragging them into a lawsuit they hadn't agreed to. One woman even hinted that Karen had bullied the board into approving things they didn't want. "She treats this place like it's her personal kingdom," the woman said. "We're done letting her call the shots." The storm was building, and Karen was at the center of it. I knew the next move would be hers, but now I had ammo, and I was ready to fire back. By the next week, Karen made her biggest mistake yet. She went public. A neighbor tipped me off to a local news clip where Karen stood in front of the HOA clubhouse, claiming she had been attacked by a dangerous ex-military man with aggressive dogs. She even painted the whole fiasco as some bizarre act of community. Heroism on her part, saying she had protected children from me. I nearly spit out my coffee watching it. The footage was pure theater, complete with fake tears and that thin-lipped smile she used when she wanted to look righteous. Sam was already 3 steps ahead. "Perfect," he said when I sent him the clip. "She just opened herself up to a defamation claim. We're adding that to the list." He wasn't joking. By now, our counterclaim had ballooned beyond trespassing and property damage. We were going after Karen for harassment, slander, and even attempted property fraud. But I didn't stop there. I decided if she wanted to play dirty in public, I'd fight fire with gasoline. I uploaded a short, unedited clip from my security cameras onto a local community Facebook group. It showed Karen's guests breaking my gate, dragging furniture across my lawn, and drinking by my porch while I was away. Then it cut to the moment I arrived and unleashed the dogs, none of which laid a tooth on anyone, just herded them out like professionals. Within hours, the video had hundreds of shares and comments. "Wait, this is the guy Karen called violent," one comment read. "Looks to me like he handled it better than most of us would." Another one, "This HOA has gone insane. Who breaks into someone's backyard and throws a party?" By evening, the video had gone viral across local groups. Even the small-town news station that had aired Karen's interview contacted me for a statement. I didn't give them a full soundbite, just one line. "My property. My rules. And everything you saw on that video is the truth." It was enough to turn public opinion like a tide. Karen, on the other hand, doubled down. She sent out a new HOA newsletter accusing me of slandering the community and called an emergency board meeting. I didn't bother going. Instead, I heard from 3 different residents who were fed up with her antics. "She's making us all look like fools," one guy told me over the phone. "Half of us didn't even know she was planning that party on your land." Sam's investigation kept unearthing more dirt. We found that Karen had misused HOA funds to pay for the event. Everything from the rented tents to the sound system. Receipts showed she'd authorized payments for community improvements that in reality went to her backyard bash. "She's cooking the books," Sam said, grinning like a man who smelled victory. "By the time we're done, the board will want her gone more than you do." Meanwhile, I kept building my own defenses. I printed out maps of my property boundaries, highlighted the survey markers, and made laminated copies of my deed. I wasn't leaving a single inch of doubt. I even bought new, heavier locks for every gate, the kind that require bolt cutters to break, just in case Karen got any more bright ideas. The pre-trial hearing was set for the following week. I showed up in my cleanest jeans and a crisp button-up shirt, nothing fancy but sharp enough to look serious. Karen arrived like she was stepping onto a movie set. White blazer, oversized sunglasses, and an entourage of board members trailing behind her. She didn't look at me once, but I caught the way her jaw clenched when she saw Sam carrying a binder stuffed with documents, photographs, and USB drives. The hearing itself was short but brutal. Sam laid out our evidence like a sniper lining up shots. Broken gate, video footage, false claims. Each point hit home. Karen's attorney tried to argue that my backyard was adjacent to community property and therefore misunderstood as shared access. Sam shredded that excuse in 30 seconds flat, waving a copy of my property deed like a flag. The judge didn't make a final ruling yet, but I could see where things were heading. "These claims are serious," the judge said, staring over his glasses at Karen. "If this evidence holds, the HOA will be liable for significant damages." Karen shifted in her seat, and for the first time, she looked less like a queen and more like someone who'd just realized the castle walls were crumbling. The day of the trial felt like walking into a battlefield, but this time the weapons were evidence and testimony instead of rifles and boots. I arrived at the courthouse with Sam by my side, both of us carrying stacks of documents and hard drives loaded with every angle of the chaos that had gone down on my property. The dog stayed home, but I could almost hear Kaiser's bark in my head, reminding me to hold my ground. Karen showed up like she was attending a gala rather than a court hearing. White blazer, pearl necklace, and that signature smug smile plastered on her face. She had 2 attorneys with her and a handful of HOA board members trailing behind, looking more like nervous interns than supporters. I caught one of them avoiding eye contact with me, probably wishing they had never signed up for this disaster. The courtroom was packed. Locals, reporters, even a few HOA residents who had been burned by Karen's antics before. Word had spread about our case, and apparently people wanted to see how the HOA queen would handle a real fight. Sam opened strong. He presented the first video clip, high-definition footage of the back gate being pried open by a guy in a polo shirt, followed by the influx of guests carrying coolers and lawn chairs onto my yard like it was a public park. The judge leaned forward, watching in silence. Then came the footage of the party itself, drinks being spilled on my training course, one kid climbing on Kaiser's ramp, and finally, the moment I arrived and gave the dogs their signal. "Notice," Sam said, pausing the video, "that not a single guest was harmed. The dogs acted as a deterrent only. They herded the crowd away without any physical contact." He glanced over at Karen's attorneys, who were squirming. My client responded lawfully and calmly to an illegal invasion of his private property. Karen's lead attorney tried to push back, claiming that my dogs were trained attack animals and that Karen had believed she had the right to use my backyard due to community agreements. Sam was ready for this. He pulled out a copy of my deed, complete with the county's seal, and held it up. "This land is fully independent of Sand Hollow Ranch's HOA. There are no shared easements. There are no agreements. And as for the claim of danger, here's the footage, unaltered and time-stamped, that proves otherwise." The judge asked Karen directly, "Do you have any written proof that Mr. Stanton gave you permission to host this event on his property?" Karen straightened her blazer and tried to smile. "It was a verbal understanding, Your Honor. We had spoken." I couldn't help but laugh out loud. "The only thing I said to you was, 'Stay off my land,'" I said, not raising my voice, but making sure everyone heard it. Sam leaned on the witness stand, calm as ever. "Your Honor, we also have email evidence showing that Ms. Larson deliberately misled her board. She described Mr. Stanton's property as part of a planned community area and encouraged the HOA to host an event there without his knowledge or consent. These are not misunderstandings. These are deliberate acts." We introduced testimony from Diego, the event planner Karen had hired, who stood up in court and told everyone how Karen claimed she had special arrangements with me. He even pulled up the text messages Karen had sent him, with phrases like, "Don't worry, he's fine with it," and "He's never around anyway." By the time Sam finished presenting the case, Karen's white blazer looked like a storm cloud. She tried to pivot, accusing me of being aggressive and uncooperative as a neighbor. That fell flat when Sam pulled out HOA financial records showing the misappropriation of funds for her party. The board members in the back row looked like they were ready to sink into the floor. The judge's verdict didn't take long. The court finds in favor of the defendant, Mr. Stanton, and grants his counterclaim. He rattled off the numbers like they were nails sealing a coffin. $185,000 in damages, including legal fees and compensation for property repairs and stress. He also ordered the HOA to issue a written apology and referred Karen's fraudulent documents to the county prosecutor for further investigation. Karen's face went pale. She tried to protest, but the gavel came down, and just like that, the war was over. For me, anyway. For her, it was just beginning. Walking out of that courtroom felt like stepping off a battlefield where the smoke had finally cleared. Sam clapped me on the back, grinning like a wolf who just cornered his prey. "You're officially the HOA's worst nightmare," he said, holding the judgment papers like they were a trophy. I let out a breath I didn't even realize I'd been holding. $185,000 wasn't just a win, it was vindication. Every second of rage, every sleepless night listening to Karen's nonsense had finally paid off. News of the verdict spread like wildfire. By the time I got home, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Calls from reporters, texts from neighbors I didn't even know I had, and a dozen Facebook tags under the headline, "Local Veteran Defeats HOA Tyrant in Court." The video I'd posted earlier now had thousands of views, and the comment section looked like a Karen roast session. People were digging up stories about her past HOA antics, petty fines, insane rules, threatening letters, and suddenly I wasn't just the guy who fought back. I was the guy who gave everyone permission to stop taking her crap. The fallout hit Sand Hollow ranches like a sledgehammer. Within a week, half the board resigned in embarrassment, and the HOA's budget took a nosedive, paying out my compensation and legal fees. Karen herself was removed from her position as president after a heated emergency vote. Word was she had to list her house for sale to cover the damages and the ongoing fraud investigation. I didn't bother sending her a goodbye card. As for me, I celebrated the only way I knew how, with a backyard barbecue, this time on my terms. I invited a few close friends, mostly fellow veterans who understood the value of standing your ground. We grilled steaks, drank beer, and laughed until the desert stars came out. Kaiser and Storm lounged by the fire pit while Lucy made rounds, accepting every scrap of food like a true queen. Before the party started, I hung a new sign on my back gate. Big, bold letters on polished wood read, "Private property, no Karen zone." Sam laughed so hard when he saw it, he nearly dropped his beer. "Hell, you should trademark that," he said. Even in the quiet that followed, I didn't let my guard down. I upgraded the security system again, set up new floodlights, and put the payout from the lawsuit straight into improving the training yard. What used to be just a personal retreat was slowly turning into something bigger. I'd been thinking about starting a small training program for local law enforcement and service dogs, and now I had both the funds and the motivation to make it happen. One evening, as I sat by the fire pit with Kaiser's head resting on my knee, I watched the desert sky turn from deep purple to black. The silence was sharp and clean, broken only by the dog's quiet breathing and the distant hum of cicadas. I thought about Karen, about her smug smile the first day we met, and about how quickly people like her crumble when you push back. Some neighbors are just annoyances. Others are full-on tyrants in yoga pants. Either way, if you let them, they'll take every inch they can grab. Not on my watch. Not now. Not ever.